Okay, so what if I told you that an ancient form of prophecy and our most advanced scientific models were pointing to the exact same future? It sounds crazy, I know, but today we're going to dive into a really strange and honestly pretty unsettling parallel between an astrologer's prediction and some hard data about a global crisis that's brewing. Let's get into it. It really makes you wonder, right? Are we just living in an echo of the past? Could it be that the crises we're all feeling and seeing today are just part of a much older, maybe even predictable cycle? So there's this young Indian astrologer, Abhigya Anand. You might remember him. He got a lot of attention for predicting the global disruption of 2020. Well, he's saying that right now, our world has entered a rare planetary alignment, one that we haven't seen in about 800 years, and it looks eerily similar to a time of absolute world-changing chaos. And look at the parallel he's drawing. Back in 1206, Genghis Khan's rise kicked off this massive global shift. And it wasn't just about the wars. It was the rapid spread of disease that followed his armies that really changed everything. Anand's point is that 2020 was a similar trigger event, a global pandemic that completely shook up our world, from how we work to the tensions between nations. Okay, so if our present is an echo of the past, what does this astrological framework say is coming next? Well, Anand's analysis points to two very specific windows of time where he believes all these tensions are really going to boil over. He breaks it down into two stages. First, between 2029 and 2032, he's forecasting a wave of separate regional crises. You can almost picture it, right? A world simmering with all these different conflicts popping up. But then, between 2039 and 2042, things are predicted to escalate, merging into a much bigger, more unified global crisis. So you have to ask, what's driving all this, according to him? He points to one word, karma. But, and this is really important, probably not in the way you're thinking. This isn't about some cosmic judge or divine punishment. It's way more like a law of physics. The idea is that all our collective actions as a species, all the wars, the pollution, everything, it all builds up. And eventually, you hit a tipping point where the consequences just have to play out. It's not fate, it's cause and effect. All right, I want you to hold that thought on karma, because we're about to pivot hard. We're going to leave the astrological charts behind and look at a forecast that comes from our labs, from our data. We're going to look at a silent pandemic that's already well underway. We are talking about something called antimicrobial resistance, or AMR. You've probably heard of it as superbugs. And it's a terrifyingly simple process. We use drugs to kill bacteria, but some of the bacteria survive and evolve. They learn, and now they're becoming so strong that our best medicines are starting to fail, which means a simple infection could become a death sentence. And here's the kicker. This isn't some distant future threat. It's happening right now. Data shows that bacterial AMR is already responsible for more direct deaths each year than HIV/AIDS or malaria. It's a crisis that has been quietly, relentlessly growing in the shadows. And the future forecast? It's just staggering. Scientists are projecting that between 2025 and 2050, we're looking at 39.1 million cumulative deaths directly from bacterial AMR. To put that in perspective, that's like 3 people dying every single minute for the next 25 years. Let that sink in. Okay, this is the moment where things get really weird. Take a look at this chart. It shows the scientific projection for AMR, with the number of deaths just climbing and climbing towards 2050. Now, look closely at that timeline. Does anything jump out at you? This is it. This is the convergence. Anand's first window of chaos, 2029 to 2032, it lands exactly where the scientific models show a massive, steep acceleration in deaths from superbugs. And his second window, 2039 to 2042, that's right when the death toll is climbing toward its devastating peak. I mean, come on. 2 totally different methods are pointing to the exact same periods of intense global crisis. It's unbelievable. So, is it just a wild coincidence? Well, one of the sources we looked at puts it bluntly, framing the whole superbug crisis in a very specific way. Quote, "The rise of superbugs is not a random bit of bad luck. It is karma." And if you think about it through that lens of cause and effect, it makes perfect sense. The cause? For decades, we have been overusing and misusing antibiotics in our own bodies and in our agriculture. The effect? Well, we put this immense evolutionary pressure on microbes, and they did what life does. They adapted, they evolved, they became superbugs. It's a direct, observable, and unavoidable consequence of our collective actions. So here we have two completely different forecasts that are basically screaming the same warning. One is looking at planetary cycles and calling the result karma. The other is looking at data trends and calling it the consequences of human actions. But you have to ask, are they just two different languages describing the exact same truth? And that leaves us with this final, really profound question. When we look at these timelines lining up so perfectly, are we staring at a destiny that was written in the stars for us? Or are we just looking into a mirror and finally seeing the bill come due for our own choices?